And then just, into the microphone so we can get you.
Great.
And then at the end we'll do a little earth for the family, because that way that's the only thing we can participate.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. Here they don't let shovel. No, nothing. Friends, why don't you come over to this side? Because since we're video streaming, I have to be in a very particular location, like right across on the other side. Yeah. I mean, I have a mic. You can stand even closer to the shade. Right. Yeah. So it's 2 minutes past, so we can go right ahead. Obviously. That's Leo. That's your dad. And is Bernard on the other side? Uh-huh. Can we do something about that?
Over here. Is his son here? No? No, Bernard. That's
Okay. All right, friends. So let us perform a ritual called Kriya. This is a very ancient ritual which dates back to the biblical period of the Jewish history. So Jeremy, if you could take out. Anita and Curtis need this.
okay, thank you.
Please put on your left.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Jordan, you don't need it.
Oh, I know?
If you want to, you can use it if you want to, but you don't need it.
Okay.
There's only children need it.
Oh, I'm a daughter-in-law.
No, daughter-in-law don't need it. No. Well, again, it's the difference about must and right. So, children ought to have it. If you choose to have it, by all means. If you had a particularly close relation with Ross, it's okay if you have it. You don't violate anything, but it is required that the children do have it. Right. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to tear those ribbons. In the Jewish tradition, in the biblical times, whenever our people would receive sad news of a passing of a loved one, they would tear their clothes and put a dust up on the head as a sign of mourning. Okay, so no dust, I promise. I'm not going to put a dust up on your heads, but we will tear the ribbon. So go ahead and make a vertical tear. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan emet. Blessed be Lord our God, ruler of the universe, judge of truth. Amen. A long time ago, or to be more precise, more than 25 years ago, when I was a young man studying at the Rabbinical Academy, I had a teacher, a truly fascinating individual. His name was Jacob Rader Marcus. Now, this man, he fell short of his 100th anniversary by 2 weeks. And I was the last class that he taught. He was 98 and a half. He was a really prominent scholar because this man, Dr. Marcus, single-handedly founded the entire field of the historical research, history of the American Jews. He wrote the first book on the history of the Jews in the United States. So very, very prominent scholar. And in spite of the fact that he was of rather advanced age when he taught us, he was a brilliant mind, very clear mind. So one time we were talking about funerals, and he told me something that astonished me, just almost shocked me. He was from West Virginia, so he had this very particular accent. He said, Michael, y'all got to remember, 5 minutes got to be enough to say everything important about everybody. I was I was a young man, like most young people. I perceived death rather dramatically. I was like, what do you mean, 5 minutes? But then when I started my practical work as a rabbi, it dawned on me quite quickly that he was right on the mark. So 5 years after that episode, I was sitting in Skokie, here in Skokie, with a family. They lost their father, so 2 sons were there, and we were talking, and I quoted my teacher. So one of the sons told me, but Rabbi, but this is very sad. I said, what's sad? What is sad? He said, the entire life in 5 minutes. And then my response just came out without thinking, just automatic. I said, what good is a book if you cannot tell me in 5 minutes what it's about upon reading it? Life is a book. And when we lose someone whom we love, we gather together not only to mourn and to share each other's pain and sorrow, but we gather together to reflect on the book that our loved one is living for us. And today we're here to contemplate Rose's book. And that book is quite voluminous. God blessed her with a long life. And that book is quite unique too, because she truly was a very unique person, and you all know that. And I think you would agree with me that the book that Rose is leaving behind is not the source of joy, of sorrow, but rather the source of joy and inspiration. So today we will mourn, but we will also rejoice over all that was beautiful, priceless in Rose's life. Now the question is, how do we write that book? Because each of us we all write our own book. How do we do that? King Solomon, 3,000 years ago, discussed in his book called Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, the meaning of life. And the way he approached it is basically he highlighted the idea that in our life we encounter contrasting experiences, opposite in nature experiences. So there is good, there is bad, there is pain, there is pleasure, there is profit, there is everything. Now, what does it mean? It means that each experience should matter. It is our duty to make every experience counts, be it some joyous event in the life of our family, or be it an obstacle that we encounter on our life path. And by making them matter, by making them meaningful, we build our legacy, we write our book. The words of King Solomon. L'chozman v'et l'chol chefetz tachad hashamayim, et laledet v'et lamut, et latat v'et l'kor natoa, et lifrotz v'et livnot, et livkot v'et lischok, et tzfot v'et rekod, et להשליך אבנים ואת כנוס אבנים, את לחבוק ואת לרחוק מחבק, את לבקש ואת לאבד, את לשמור ואת להשליך, את לקרוא ואת לתפור, את לחשות ואת לדבר. For everything there is a season and a time for every experience under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to discard. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. It is a time to speak, and it is a time to reflect on that book that Rose is leaving behind, is leaving for us. Well, Rose's background is classical Chicago Jewish background, because she was born not just on the west side, she was born in the Maxwell Street area, back when it was all Jewish. All the street vendors were Jewish. I even personally remember there was a guy whose nickname was a sockman. I knew him. Actually, I buried him too. He's buried here at Shalom a long time ago. He just sold socks on the Maxwell. And every merchant, everybody was Jewish back then. So this is how while back Rose's childhood goes. Now, it is also important to mention that she encountered in the course of her life, especially the early stages of her life, a lot of adversity. This was the Great Depression era. And the Great Depression wasn't just an economic calamity that has befallen the entire world and especially the United States. It's one of the most grim periods in the history of our nation, to be very truthful, in terms of the standard of living, the devastation, and 25% unemployment and all that. As an economist, I can go on and on about that. But what it caused many families to fall apart. It caused tremendous emotional distress for people. And Rose, being a child, suffered the consequences of that. She was placed into Mark Nathan's home, spent almost 10 years, almost 10 years she spent there during the Great Depression. However, I must say that even though it was practically an orphanage, even though she wasn't quite an orphan, her dad visited her and all that, but many people who could not take care of their kids, they would place their kids at Mark Nathan's home. By far, most kids back then in that institution were not orphans. I know that for a fact. So Rose actually remembered that time very fondly. It was actually a very good place, a very comfortable place, and again, against the background of the poverty caused by the Great Depression and clearly distress that the kids were suffering at home before they came to Mark Nathan's. This was definitely a good place for it to be. So the reason why I'm even talking about these experiences is for us to appreciate the fact that very early on, Roz needed to acquire one of two important characteristics, shall I say, that matter profoundly for our life to be meaningful. And that's a strength. She was an incredibly strong person. Whether it comes to life itself, whether it comes to opinions, that too. I'll get to that eventually. But she really had to learn to be strong very early on. That was the society, that was the era, that was the time that people who are weak didn't get very far. You had to be strong. And she was. She met Leo. She's been laid to rest right next to him. Alava Shalom. May his memory be a blessing. And again, this was just part of her experience. She dedicated her life to a family, raising kids. And then another challenge came in Rose's life. Leo passed away when kids were very young. So this was a mother of four. By then she had all of you, I think. But yeah, of course, all four of you. Yeah. So the mother of four, all kids are still young, I think 16 or younger. She's all alone. She needs to raise the children. And she's just been a homemaker. And here again, she figured out how to do it. She was strong enough, she was smart enough, she was resourceful enough. They owned a couple of buildings, which she managed and kept on managing until the last couple of months. And she is, incidentally, she's almost 98. So until the last couple of months, she managed those buildings. And therefore she kind of made ends meet, financially speaking, and all that. So this takes a tremendous strength of spirit, resourcefulness, and this is exactly how Rose was. Now, another important character trait that we need to have is love. And Rose was a loving person. I'm not trying to say she was an easy person. That would be an exaggeration. You would call me a liar. But I'm telling you honestly, I don't think I'm an easy person either. We all have our mishugas, and right? So she was no exception. And she was old school. She grew up and matured as a person before the age of therapies. Therefore, when she had her opinions, she held on to them. She had her opinions. She would not mince words. She would tell it like it is. That was her approach. That was her style. But you know what? You knew whatever she said, she meant it. She really meant it. So now, at the same time, it's important for us to mention that yes, she held her opinions. Yes, she could tell you, but she was a generous person that took care of you. Always did. Always did. It's like that. Yes, you might say something, you might want something, you might do something that she wouldn't particularly be thrilled about, but in the end, she always comes through for you. Always did. And her attitude towards life was positive, because again, she had to be strong. And if you cannot win battles of this life without that positive attitude that I can do it, I can make it happen, I can overcome this. And she did. She won those battles. On the lighter note, well, I gotta tell you three things about Rose that I think also are very important details of her life. One was that she enjoyed traveling very much. And back in the day, she traveled and they went all over the world, to Scandinavia, to Mexico, stateside. So that was something that she enjoyed tremendously. The second thing I'd like to share about Rose is that in one way, she was ahead of her time. She ate healthy before healthy eating was the thing. No, she was not a cook, but she always ate healthy. Finally, and that kind of brings us back full circle to Rose's early background, being the child of the Great Depression, being the child of the 1930s, having grown up in the 1930s. She counted every cent. She cherished and valued every dollar that she had, which means that she always sought good deals whenever it came to retail. I mean, this famous or infamous or notorious concept that Jews never pay retail, that was Ross. That was the ironclad rule for her. Yes, never mind. Yeah, she knows that. If she, let's say she lived by Dominic's. I don't know what was the closest supermarket. But then Jewel, 2 miles away, would have bananas 20 cents less. Okay, so you would never be able to explain to her that there's no point driving 2 miles to Jewel because you're going to burn that gas, which will negate those savings. No. 20 cents less is 20 cents less. She'll go to that Jewel. That's just how it worked. Jews never pay retail. Ross didn't. But now I'm arriving at the most important part of Rose's life, and that's her family. Why did she fight all those battles? Not for herself, not for her own sake. It wasn't about self-survival, right? It was much more about the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, about the family, the future generations of your family. And she truly was a matriarch of your family, and the family tree is very widespread, branched out. Now, she was married to Lee. I already mentioned him. That's your dad, and may his memory be a blessing. And they were married for 18 years. Subsequently, she met a good man, Bernard, to whom she was married for about 20 years. And I think Bernard is also buried nearby, right here. May his memory be a blessing. Now, God blessed Rose with 4 children, and she was a loving mother of Anita, Curtis, Mike, and Susie of blessed memory. She has a son-in-law, Kaya, and Curtis is married to Debbie. Mike's married to Alexis, and Susie's widower's name's Danny. She always had a very respectful relationship with them. Now I'm getting to the longer part of the list. Now, here's getting confusing. Now I'm going to get it all right. She was a caring and loving grandmother of Alex, Lisa, and Lisa is engaged to Ralph, so hopefully the wedding will be soon. Well, these days it's, you know how it is, right? Everybody's moving to the next year. All the weddings I have moving to the next year. So, but it will happen, and when it will happen, she will be smiling from heaven. She will be smiling from heaven and celebrating with us in spirit. On with the rest of the grandchildren. Melissa was married to Matthew. Jordan was married to Jan. I had an honor of presiding over that celebration. Ryan was married to Angela, and Jennifer was married to Brett. How am I doing? Doing all right. I think so far so good, right? Finally, as I said, Rose was blessed with long life, and she was blessed with great-grandchildren. Shayna, Talia, Henry, Owen, Logan, May, Wyatt, Alice, Patty, and Susan. Am I good or what? When you get every single member of such a family, right? But I appreciate your help, Anita, with that yesterday. So this was a woman who dedicated her life to being there for her family. Not only when things were easy, not only when things were joyous, but when things were tough, when things were difficult. So her mission is now complete. The next generations of Rose's family will carry on the legacy expressed in the book that she's living for us. Continue to live, continue to love, and always be strong. So may Rose's memory be a blessing upon all of us. Let us honor Rose's memory with a moment of silence, and then we will continue with Kaddish. Please join me. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabba, bi'alma divra cherutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'hayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dachol Beit Israel, ba'agalau v'zman karev v'imru amen. Yeh shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam u'le'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dgudsha brecho. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nekemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yesh lama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us. Amen. We shall now proceed with the interment. So the cemetery staff will now lower the casket into the place of eternal rest. Our friends will now lower the casket into the place of eternal rest of our dear Rose. And following that, I think Jeremy has some earth for you. Right, so that you could... Right, they're going to step aside. When they close the lid of the vault, then Jeremy will give you some... Oh, that's after the... Right. Then they'll cover the grave, and then you'll put some earth onto the... Right. No, I know. Yes, yeah. I just remembered that, yes. I'm so glad we're in the shade today. I'm so glad we're in the shade. And I think the heat is gonna go away. I take it from myself. I don't think the ramp is still going to be what it is. Well, but you grew up here, so you just no, we all come to visit it. I've been here for 25 years. I've been living in Chicago. Shalom. You grew up here too, right? Did you go to Stevenson? Oh, I had no idea that you were from India. No, I've been to Munster. Is that where you got permit from?
No, I got permit from
Yeah, Hammond has it. And then there's another one too. I forget where it is.
There's a room up there to go down the street. Then I moved to Munster and then next week.
Was the whole church. The people with a lot of money lived in Hyde Park. here. Curtis, I need to, they want to, for them to complete, yeah, they want you to step back.
I'm sorry.
I mean, because of the peculiarity of the current moment, current situation, there are all these new rules that they have to follow to, you know.
Will we still shovel?
Again, it's one of those obstacles that our life gives us. No, we're not going to shovel. They're going to give you little cups, right?
Okay.
Israeli earth, yeah. They're going to give Israeli earth. So I'm going to explain again. I guess I didn't explain it clearly enough. They're going to close the lid of the vault. Then they're going to complete the burial using a dump truck. And then on top of that, you can put the earth that Jeremy will give you. Yeah, so that earth is taken from the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. At least that's what the package says. That's what the package says, right? I mean, if you look at the phone number has the area code 718, which is Brooklyn. Brooklyn. So that counts. Brooklyn is even more Jewish than Israel. I mean, right? So it's, technically speaking, right? So, but in all seriousness, the Mount of Olives is a very important part of our tradition. If you've ever been to Jerusalem, the Mount of Olives is to the east of the Temple Mount, and it's much taller. So the view is breathtaking from the Mount of Olives on the Temple Mount. But also there is a very ancient Jewish cemetery, a very large one, in fact the most prestigious one in Israel, on the Mount of Olives. Moreover, the cemetery is so ancient that it is believed that one of the biblical prophets, Zechariah, is buried there. And in fact, the Mount of Olives is repeatedly mentioned in the book of that prophet, Zechariah. And there are many beliefs associated with the Mount of Olives. In particular, there is a belief that when the end of times, the end of history comes, and when the Messiah comes, so there will be a resurrection of the dead. And first people who will return back to life, they will be the ones who are buried in the earth of the Mount of Olives. So to symbolize that, you will place that earth into the place of eternal rest of our dear, of our dear Lord. I can go on and on about that topic because back, I think in October or November, I did a story for a Russian television channel about the Mount of Olives. So seriously, yeah, they shot, they gave the visuals and all that, and they asked me to do the story for them, and so I did some research on that. And, so I told you maybe like 5% of what I know about that.
Say we should have gone the whole restaurant, or we should have gone out to Chinese food on the outside, or it's very good.
right. So, muchas gracias, señores.
You're welcome.
Okay, so here's the back. So each of you will just throw a little bit on top of the barrel. Well, so that
Share the bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
little
just
bit.
a little bit, and then
A
you
little
know,
bit each, Dan.
you know, I invite all of you to participate. So just come forward. Please. That's it. I'm done. I'm done. I think I got two to go. How many barrels?
Yeah.
Good. The bag, what do you, Jeremy will take it. Well, my dear friends, this does
Okay.
conclude the service here at the cemetery.
Okay, thank you.
By the Jewish tradition, we do not linger at the cemetery, so I invite you to
Okay.
proceed. No, I'm not chasing you away. You don't have to run, Anita. You know, don't race from here. But I want to say that I was pleased to see you in spite of the sadness of the occasion. I wish you a good Yom Tov. Shavuos is coming tomorrow. And most importantly, take care of yourselves. And next time, I hope to see you on a good occasion and without masks, so I could see your smiles.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Be well. Take care.
Thank you.